The following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Yeah!
Go Cowboys!
Let's go, baby!
Are you ready for a break?
Yes.
Are you ready for a break?
Absolutely.
Ready for a break?
Yeah, and so much for that.
It's time for The Break on DallasCowboys.com
We were on the break!
with Ambar Garcia, Bryan Broaddus, Nick Harris, and Derek Eagleton.
It is Wednesday, November 6th, 2024, Season 20, Episode number 63. Welcome to the latest edition of The Break. We are live from the SWBC Mortgage Studios at the Star, presented by LG. LG is the world's #1 OLED TV brand for 11 years and counting. See why at lg.com/OLED Evo. How's everybody doing today?
Doing well.
Excellent.
Doing well.
Awesome. Let's jump in. Lots of topics for us to hit today. We're going to jump into the breakdown between the Cowboys and the Eagles. Today we're focusing on the Eagles offense versus the Dallas defense. But before we get there, I want to start first with a couple of roster moves that happened yesterday. Dallas releases Jordan Phillips and Andrew Booth. My question is more around Jordan Phillips. Why do you think they made the move to get rid of Phillips at this point, knowing that the defensive tackle position is what it is for this team? And if nothing else, he was still a body that maybe you could throw in there and see what you could get out of him.
Yeah, definitely a lot of discourse around whenever he went on the injured reserve list for his wrist issue that he was battling. I mean, it was a wrist issue that he had suffered in the Dallas game last year when he was playing for Buffalo, had surgery on it, and didn't look necessarily 100% in the first couple of games of the season. Cowboys put him on IR. He disagreed with it, and I'm sure that disagreement, led to a few more disagreements and eventually yesterday's conclusion. And he's back in Buffalo today. So.
Yeah, it was a quick move for Buffalo to then go out and sign him and bring him back into the team. So
Never felt more wrong about a player watching tape than him. Kind of felt like when we saw him in the preseason, or when I saw him, here's a guy, you watched him play against Dallas, you watched him play against the Commanders, you watched him play against the Eagles, Chiefs, other teams. Guy was a very productive player. Guy was active. Guy was a 3 technique. Guy was playing on the other side of the line of scrimmage. Guy was giving Tyron Smith problems, when he lined up a little wide against him a couple of times. That one was really strange to me. That shakes you a little bit when you look at a player and you feel like, and obviously they felt like, he was with the Giants. The Giants weren't playing him. Giants had a lot of young defensive tackles. Maybe should have probably known something then, what was going on. But clearly wasn't the same player. But I never felt like I really got a really good view of him here. But Mike Zimmer, front office, all those guys, they quickly moved on. And so that's when it shakes you a little bit, because you're watching a player and you're thinking, okay, this guy's got a shot because he can do these. He has these kinds of traits. And when none of that shows up, then you're like, man, did I really miss this player that bad? And I think they have some questions if they miss that player that bad too.
can I throw this thought out there?
Sure.
Is it, in your experience, have you seen situations
Sucks.
like this? No, in your experience, have you seen situations like this where it wasn't that the player was different, it was what he was being asked to do that was different?
You know what? When I was in pro personnel, I always had an idea of what we were trying to do.
Yeah.
I always had an idea what we were trying to do scheme-wise. So sometimes, you're just like, okay, this guy has these traits and this trait. And, I was thinking maybe this guy would play some 1 technique. He's a big guy. It was, but he was so active in the way he played. Everybody's like, no, he's going to play the 3. And I'm like, okay, great. That's fine. He's got some 3 technique traits to him. But you felt like that he could fit in, as a rotational player, to maybe if you played him 20, 25 snaps and, he could be part of that because of the things you saw: pass rush, you saw quickness, you saw his ability to play outside the tackle box. Hell, he's probably going to go to Buffalo and he's going to probably help them win a game against Kansas City or the Ravens or something. And you're going to go, okay, now I don't feel terrible.
Now he's the guy you thought he was. He just didn't work here, right?
And maybe, hey, when things go bad, like I say, when you're a personnel guy and you bring somebody in and it doesn't work out, you really want to hide. You don't want to go to lunch. You don't want to talk to anybody. You just, you don't even want to see the general manager.
Yeah.
You really don't, because you're like, well, hey, we brought this guy in because you said he could play, and he can't play dead, and that's the problem that you run into, and especially when the season's going bad. When the season starts to go bad, you just want to close your door and just watch tape and try and get to the next task, because you're just, they traded, they gave a significant pick yesterday for a wide receiver. Mm-hmm. The pro department has a hand in that. I mean, you kind of feel like, boy, we're running some bad luck right now, or our evaluations. You're now starting to question a little bit about, did we see these guys? Are we seeing these guys the right way? And that's a terrible feeling to have.
Well, what makes it difficult, I think, for me is like, how do you truly judge a player when you see a collective group of people that are playing bad or not well or how you expect them? How do you give a proper judgment to where, what if it's me?
Yeah.
What if, I'm saying, as far as like the coaching staff, no.
Oh.
I'm saying.
Well, I say that a lot.
What I'm trying to say is, let's say this guy, right? They get rid of him and all of that. But then when you have so many other players on your defense, overall on the team that are playing bad, like how do you truly can get a full evaluation that maybe it's not the player, maybe it's your system, maybe it's what you're doing.
Yeah, that's
what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that's where you want to close the door, and you want to hope that at the end of the year that you still have a gig. That you're not going out with everybody else, because they're going to make an evaluation. They're going to say, hey, you've had a lot of misses here, or the coaches have done, if you're one of those scouts that have really evaluated and helped them bring guys in and players have played, you get a little bit of a pass on that. But then the general manager has to evaluate, like you just said, the coaching, the scheme, all those things. I think all those things are up for debate at the end of the year, especially if you haven't had success. And I think these coaches know that. Yep. I think that's the hard thing. And, unfortunately and fortunately all in the same time, because of the injuries here, you don't have to ask this coach to play young players. He's already playing young players because of injury. Mm-hmm. So at least you're getting an idea. It's, if you were going badly and you were doing it with veteran players and you weren't hurt, and, you would be like, hey, any chance we could see Leofau play a little more? Any chance we could see, you would go in there and ask a coach that when they're fighting for their job. Now it's like you don't really have to do that, because you're just seeing it. You're seeing, but to your point, absolutely. This front office, general manager, director of player personnel, all these guys need to evaluate what was the problem this year, or what's been the problem through 9 games this year.
Yeah, and what I hope,
where did we miss?
What I hope is that it doesn't get boiled down to just injuries, because we all will remember, if we want to, that New Orleans game. Yeah. And you had a lot of guys out there for that game, and that game looked like you were just you got destroyed by a not that good team. And a lot of that, when I look at it, and I'll point out a couple different units. I'll point out the defensive unit as a whole. I'll point out the offensive line, and I'll point out the receivers. And what you see in all those different groups is, across the board, they just don't seem like they're performing up to standard, right?
Right.
Troy Aikman talked about the receivers. We've talked about the offensive lines. Guys on that offensive line that we've been used to playing at a certain level that this year are well below that level, right? This defense that, again, you expect a lot of these players individually to be playing above a certain level, but as a unit they're playing below it. I think those are instances where you have to ask, what's going on with the coaching? What's going on with what they're being taught, what they're being asked to do, how they're being drilled, and the things they should do? If they keep getting beat on the same thing, are we drilling this enough in practice to where they see it enough to where they're making the adjustments? Those are all the questions that I have. And my guess is that the GM, the owner, the coach, head coach, the player personnel guys, everybody's going to be asking those kinds of questions as you start trying to dissect what's happening this season to this team.
Yeah, and I think part of the question is also figuring out what else you have that has not played, and try to figure that out over the course of the next 9 games or however many that are left. I think there's still a lot of answers that need to be, or a lot of questions that need to be answered as far as the depth on this team. We've talked about guys like Awesome Richards or Amaris Leofau or I'm trying to think of some some other guys that are around. I mean, if Jordan Phillips isn't playing, you're going to see a lot more of Osa Odighizuwa.
Yeah.
You might even see an opportunity for like a guy like Denzel Daxon maybe later down the season to get an elevation. I mean, there's tons of possibilities. So there's still questions that could be answered by this evaluation staff and being like, hey, at least we found that guy and he played in week 15, 16, 17, and we can take that into next year with a little bit of confidence. So I think there's still a lot of left on the table as far as what could be determined.
Does it worry you a little bit that maybe when you add a wide receiver that they won't address a wide receiver in the draft?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%.
See, that always scares me.
That was the first thing that popped in my mind.
That
I
always
hope that's
scares
not
me a little bit.
the way-
And I think it happened at running back.
Yeah.
I think it happened at running back.
Oh, for sure.
I think it happened when they had an idea that they were going to get Zeke back, and maybe your eye wasn't on the ball when you're thinking, okay, we've got Zeke, and he's going to come back. Maybe we don't have to. It turns into, well, this guy's not as good as Zeke, or this guy's not as good as Dowdle. I'm talking about the draft picks.
Yeah.
All of a sudden it gets, there's guys that are better, then they start coming off the board, and then you're like, man, we need this linebacker more than we need this running back. And I understand why when they got Leofau. I get it, because we all talked about what the linebacker situation was last year.
Mm-hmm.
They needed linebackers on this team.
And they ended up needing it this year.
Yeah, and to a man, they were talking about Leofau as a, when they came in here, when we were doing the draft coverage, the draft show, the draft weekend, it was praise. The kid's a good player. I mean, he's played in base packages. They played a lot of base. When he's had opportunity, he's done okay. He's done okay on special teams. But then you kind of look at the situation. Did the thought about Zeke keep you, or maybe even Dowdle, did that keep you from really keeping your eye on the ball and trying to upgrade that position?
Go ahead.
When they were asked about it after each day in the press conferences and talking about, running back, Jerry would bring up Zeke.
Yeah.
So I think that's a direct point.
But here's the flip side of that. I don't worry so much about that this year, mainly because there is no position that if the Dallas Cowboys were on the clock and they're like, this is a better player, I'd be upset with them taking. I don't think they go into this draft saying, I need a receiver. If they do, they also should be saying, I could take a tackle, I could take a guard,
no
I
question.
could take you can go down the list.
There is,
and
right.
so,
They're not
for
one
me,
player away.
Yeah, so for me, I look at it, and I'm not so worried about that. If it happens that you don't get a receiver, but you got a safety.
Yeah.
It happens that you got a corner. It happens that you got a tackle. Right. If you get all those other positions, fine. You're not going to address everything this draft. You can't.
Right.
There are too many areas where you need talent and you need depth. So they're not going to address everything. So I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah, to me, it's funny. I don't want
What a
to.
great problem to have.
If
you can literally get it.
You can take anybody. Like, it doesn't matter the position.
Oh man.
No, I mean, but that also that just shows you where you're at.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
You're not.
That's a problem in and of itself.
Yeah,
right?
you're not. You're not. Maybe you're maybe not the Commanders who makes a big deal yesterday for a corner.
Mm-hmm.
They're feeling like. If
We're
we're really going to be good at this, we're one player away. Now, they may be completely wrong about that, because I think they got other issues too.
Yeah.
But these teams that are these teams like Detroit,
they went and got a pass rusher.
Got a pass rusher.
Yeah.
They that's what you got to do. You got to go out and get that. Yeah.
No
Ravens.
Yeah.
On both sides of the ball.
You said the Ravens?
On both sides of the ball.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
Getting a receiver and a corner.
Yeah, but that's also again, I just think that's where those teams are right now. And I think Dallas is not there. They're not in that same boat with those teams, obviously. Yeah. I mean, that's being Captain Obvious, but they're not there. Those teams are in positions where they are battling to see if they can get ahead of the next team because they think they got a legitimate shot.
I just don't want this to turn in where they have, say you have 10 picks. Well, now you've just moved on from one of those picks or the selections you have.
Yeah.
I don't want it to turn into like, okay, now we got to use 2 more picks to get back in the 4th because and now you've used 3 picks on one player basically. And
especially if that player doesn't end up being
and that's what
good
I'm
enough
saying.
to be a number 2 for sure.
He's going to have an opportunity to show up and see what he can do. And I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. I appreciate the fact they went and tried. I just don't like the compensation myself.
Yeah.
That's just me. But I hope it doesn't turn into, well, now we can't get back in the 4th, or we didn't. Now we want to get back in the 4th, and now you have to use multiple picks to trade with somebody to get back in the 4th.
Yeah.
Now it turns into, well, wait a minute. If you just wouldn't have made the trade, we'd had all our complements of picks, and we'd been just fine. But if you end up having to trade 2 more picks just to get back in the round, that's going to be that's something I'm sure we're going to point out if that happens in the draft show.
No doubt. All right, let's take our first break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Eagles. We'll jump in, talk a little bit about what their team looks like overall, and then we'll get into the offense. We'll be back. DallasCowboys.com radio.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
It's the official men's skincare brand of the Dallas Cowboys, Jack Black. And right now, Cowboys fans can get 15% off their $75 order. Plus, because every deal needs a playmaker, your order will include a free 5-piece skincare set and free shipping. The Jack Black Playmaker is 4 of Jack's favorites and a full-sized intense therapy lip balm. Make a play for the playmaker at getjackblack.com/Cowboys with the code CowboysVIP. That's getjackblack.com/Cowboys with the code CowboysVIP.
Don't put off getting your oil changed, Dallas. Take 5 Oil Change, a proud partner of the Cowboys, is faster than you think. They're so fast, you don't even have to get out of your car. You can take advantage of Take 5's stay-in-your-car 10-minute oil change at any of their locations across the Dallas area. And remember, at Take 5, you stay in your car because they're faster than you think. That means you won't even have time to show off your best touchdown celebration. Take 5, the official oil change of the Dallas Cowboys.
From the field to the festivities, Lucchese embodies the essence of luxury and tradition. Handcrafted with meticulous precision, each pair offers unmatched comfort and style. Stand tall while you're tailgating or cheering in the stands with the Dallas Cowboys collection by Lucchese. Shop the collection today at the Lucchese store at the Star in Frisco or online at lucchese.com. Lucchese, the official boot of the Dallas Cowboys and Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders.
Hey y'all, Matt Pittman of Meat Church here. With football season kicking off, I'm already gearing up to bring the smoker back to AT&T Stadium for some epic tailgates. But with that Texas heat, it's crucial to keep my beer hand cramping cold. That's where Yeti's insulated Colster can cooler comes in clutch. This year, you can even get them with the iconic star engraved on the side. Licensed Yeti Cowboys gear is now available at Stadium Pro Shops, concessions, and on Yeti.com. Check it out today. Yeti, official cooler and drinkware of the Dallas Cowboys.
Back to the break.
LG OLED Evo is the best TV in the game, but don't take our word for it. Digital Trends said the LG OLED G4 has the best picture quality they've ever seen. See it for yourself at lg.com/OLED Evo.
Welcome back. Second segment of the break, live from SWBC Mortgage Studios at the start of the segment, brought to you by blockchain.com. Listening real quickly there in the break, Mike McCarthy's doing his press conference. One thing he already mentioned, a little bit of news, says that DeMarcus Lawrence and Brandon Cooks, neither will have their 21-day practice windows open today, but he is optimistic about how both of them are progressing. That being tweeted by our own Tommy Yarsh. Any surprises there that those guys aren't ready to kind of to be put back into the open that 21-day window?
Yeah, I think there's good news and bad news in that one sentence. The good news being that DeMarcus Lawrence is in the same sentence as Brandon Cooks. The bad news being that Brandon Cooks is in the same sentence as DeMarcus Lawrence.
Yeah.
So,
because I didn't put them together, right?
Exactly. But I think
that goes to show never take an infection seriously.
That's
like
true.
I cannot believe it has taken this long from Brandon Cooks to not come back. Like I imagine you get enough antibiotics in there in your body, and then next thing you know, you're out here running. Man, that must have been a pretty bad infection.
Some infections can be nagging, and they can last a
some
really long time.
Some infections can kill you. Let's be clear.
Yeah, sure, 100%. 100%.
Crazy.
So, definitely still, not only does he have to recover from that, but also from the knee itself that he had the injection to begin with. So, and then DeMarcus Lawrence progressing well from his foot as well. So, I think that's interesting.
All right. Let's talk about the Eagles. Right now, they are 6-2. They're second in the NFC East. They have lost to the Atlanta Falcons. They lost 22-21 and lost to Tampa Bay back when Tampa Bay was at full strength. Tampa Bay has beaten them the worst anybody has this year. They beat them 33-16. The only really key win that I've seen on their schedule was the one against Green Bay. Green Bay is 6-3 and leading their second in their division. They won that game 34-29.
That was opening day in Brazil.
Back in week 1, right? Exactly. But here's who else they've beat. They beat New Orleans, who's 2-7.
Should have lost Cleveland.
That game. Yeah, they beat Cleveland, who's 2-7. They beat the Giants, who are 2-7. They beat Cincinnati, who's 4-5. They beat Jacksonville, who's 2-7. My question for you is, how good is this Eagles team? Because they really haven't beaten better teams. They've beaten a lot of bad teams. And again, this is not about the Cowboys, because you would say the Cowboys are in the category with some of those other teams. But how good is this Eagles team?
For the Eagles to beat the Cowboys.
Yeah, but how good is this Eagles team, do you think?
I think they are inconsistent, and each game shows a little bit of a roller coaster. Now, a team that has won 4 games in a row, why are they inconsistent? What are you saying, Nick? I am looking at 4 teams that are under 500 at the moment. So I think at times you see the Eagles play their best, and they're a rushing attack with Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley, and they're tough and they're physical and they're mean. And then at their worst, they can't get off the field defensively. They can't get a first down offensively. Hurts makes bad decisions. It's an up and down roller coaster of a team. It's very similar to what we saw last year, with certain things from that final stretch that the Eagles had last year refined, in the sense that Hurts isn't making as poor of decisions. I think their head coach is, but there's man, when Nick Sirianni is the head
he will
coach,
keep you in a game.
You will always have a chance.
He will keep you in a game.
It's wild.
Yeah, no, Nick's absolutely right. The one thing is they are wildly inconsistent, though. I think Saquon Barkley, though, has made a huge difference for them.
Yeah.
I think it's taken some pressure off Jalen Hurts. They've struggled with some injuries on this offensive line. They still got outstanding skill. They've struggled with injuries at the wide receiver spot. A.J. Brown, is currently dealing with a knee injury. Dallas Goedert's dealing with a hamstring injury. They play a ton of 12 personnel, the 2 tight ends, 1 back. That's something that, Kellen Moore is kind of gone to with this current group. Their offensive line at times blocks really well in the running game. I mean, they do a good job of coming off the ball, getting into guys, and then getting the second level. Their center, they tried to do the same things with what they had with Kelsey, where if he's uncovered, they pull him out in space, they block everybody down. There's a lot of things to kind of take from their offensive line and the scheme and the way that Kellen Moore is trying to run the ball. But I just think the biggest difference right here with this team is the addition of Saquon Barkley. I think that's what makes this team tough for Dallas to have to deal with, because you can hand him the ball and it's going to get to the edge and then it's going to get around. Dallas has played Saquon Barkley before, but it's every time he's not healthy. He looks like the player that everybody thought he was going to be when he first came in the league from Penn State. It ever seems like we played with the Giants, that quarterback play wasn't good enough. The offensive line wasn't good enough. The receivers weren't good enough. I mean, he's got guys around him where he doesn't have to completely carry the load, but he can. He makes a lot of plays. He makes a lot of plays in the passing game. They run wheel route. They run 2 real wheel routes to him, both been touchdowns. They can throw him the ball. They can hand him the ball. They'll put him in the wildcat. They'll snap him the ball. It's going to be a challenge for Dallas to have to stop this Philadelphia rushing attack in that way.
Yeah, Barkley's a difference maker completely, and not only has he been a big difference, but that offensive line, and they had to do a lot of shuffling this past offseason. I got to give them credit, Howie Roseman or whoever constructed that offensive line in the absence of a couple of guys. They did a really good job. Granted, I think there is a hole at left tackle that we'll probably get into here in a moment, but Barkley wasn't the only guy they went and got from New York. Mekhi Becton has been really good in run block, and I really like what he brings to the right guard position. He was a former first-round pick, played with the Jets for a while, never really found his footing, but it looks like he has found his footing in Philadelphia, and he has been paving ways on the right side of that offensive line for Saquon Barkley. And Barkley's just finding a lot of room up front. Granted, I don't want to take anything away from Saquon Barkley because he's a talented runner. He's a physical runner. He's not a guy you want to bring down, but this offensive line has helped him out quite a bit too.
Yeah, where they've been bad, and Nick's absolutely right about the running game stuff. Where they've been bad is some of the pass protection stuff. Is on the left side, Fred Johnson, who's stepped in for Jordan Mailata, has given up some pressures, given up the most pressures of anybody. You watch him play, Landon Dickerson on that left side over there. They got a couple guys. Becton has been beat. The run stuff is really, really good with Becton coming off the ball. But he's a big guy. He's massive. His foot quickness at times has been a problem when people have run twist stunts and some of the stuff that Dallas deals with. They get too many guys locked on one guy. Becton has trouble adjusting back when all of a sudden he sets and he's now passing, but then he has to come back to get the twister. That's where you watch the sacks and things and the pressures. That's where it's come from. Him and Landon Dickerson. I don't think they're very good foot athletes. Kind of bigger guys, especially Becton. But they've got a really athletic center. Lane Johnson's a very good athlete at right tackle. But there are some cracks in this offensive line when it does come to some pass protection stuff.
Is this a game where, and I know this was the case when the Cowboys played the 49ers. I think it was Nick that you brought up this idea at first. But is this a game where you tell your defensive ends, I care a lot less about sacks, stay in your lanes, make sure you set the edge, let's stop the run, because if you can stop the run, that's the biggest battle you'll have to battle with this Eagles team?
I lean a little bit differently this time around just because of the athlete that Jalen Hurts is. And it's a healthy Jalen Hurts that we're seeing this year. It's a physical runner Jalen Hurts that we're seeing this year compared to last year, where I think that knee was bothering him quite a bit more than they let on. I want to contain Jalen Hurts because I think Saquon can still get his, and you can win that ball game. If this is a game where Micah Parsons comes back, throw him at left tackle and let him go to work. I think this could be a really. I think this could be an opportunity for him to really get some momentum and get some sacks on Jalen Hurts. Contain the pocket. I would rather them contain the pocket than contain the run game. That's me personally.
Yeah, this is kind of a nightmare game for Parsons. Parsons has had he's looked so bad playing the Eagles scheme wise because
they freeze him.
They put him in no man's land.
Yep.
He's like, should I chase or should I stay wide? It's like an old Clash song. Should I stay or should I go? You guys are way too young to remember.
I do know that song.
Okay.
I do.
Amber? Come on, man. The Clash.
Sounds familiar.
Okay. Should I stay or should I go? But yeah, so but that's the thing about with Parsons is that he gets caught. He's kind of trying to play his assignment, and then all of a sudden, no, they hand the ball. And that's the thing that now with Barkley, you can hand the ball to him inside, and you'll be just fine. You'll be just fine doing that. But it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge because, first game back, and this team traditionally has given him problems just because they make him have to play with some indecision.
Yeah.
How mobile has Jalen been?
He hasn't really had to be. Now he could still run.
I definitely can.
He could. He used to have a shoulder problem, and he didn't want it. And then now he had a knee problem, and now he didn't want to run. But he's one of those. He holds the ball. Here's another one of those quarterbacks. You play the guy at San Francisco. These guys that hold the ball, but this guy, the longer he holds the ball, he's like about a 60% passer doing that. So I mean, there's times where guys that hold the ball and they're not good at that. Remember, Brock Purdy was a hold the ball, and then he was good at that. I went back and watched the interceptions. You can make this guy panic a little bit, but you got to get up to him and make him kind of, because he'll do stupid things like run to his right and throw the ball all the way back in the middle of the field, or he'll just think he can take a deep shot, and the safety's standing right there, and it's an interception. But to your question, the mobility is still. It's very much like, okay, I'm just going to it's not so much designed runs. It's more like get out of trouble runs is what it is.
Okay.
Per Pro Football Focus, he has scrambled outside of the pocket on passing plays 21 times this season for 185 yards. And just in general, his rushing stats are 86 carries for 322 yards and 8 scores. He's around about the same pace that he was at last year, yardage-wise, but attempts have gone up. So that's something to kind of keep an eye on, I guess.
All right, let's take our final break. We'll come back. We got more thoughts and questions on this Philadelphia offense versus the Dallas defense. We'll be back. DallasCowboys.com radio.
If you can't be at the stadium, there's no better way to watch your Cowboys than on an LG OLED Evo TV. That's because everything you see is more lifelike. Every play, every hit. I mean, you might as well be on the sidelines. That's how clear it is. It's all thanks to LG's legendary technology. Perfect black, over 8.3 million self-lit pixels. No one comes close. LG OLED Evo is the best TV in the game for a reason. See for yourself at lg.com/OLED Evo.
They say champions are remembered, but legends are never forgotten. United Ag and Turf offers a winning lineup of John Deere equipment built to tackle any challenge on and off the field. Legendary John Deere tractors, combines, residential mowers, commercial mowers, compact construction equipment, Gator utility vehicles, and a full line of golf and sports turf equipment. United Ag and Turf, the official Ag and Turf equipment supplier of the Dallas Cowboys. Visit UnitedAgAndTurf.com to find a location near you.
If you shout, "How about them Cowboys?" you have that undeniable passion that's the heart of Cowboys Nation. And if you like to drink Dr. Pepper, you love the unique blend of its 23 flavors. Together, your one-of-a-kind fandom paired with the one-of-a-kind taste of a delicious ice-cold Dr. Pepper is the game day lineup that can't be beat. Better yet, gather your Cowboys and Dr. Pepper fan friends to watch the next game and crack open a delicious ice-cold Dr. Pepper for everyone. The wins will be even tastier. It's a Pepper thing.
And we're going to overtime.
Erica, how much have I spent on concessions?
For questions about their money, Dallas Cowboys fans can turn to Erica, the virtual financial assistant in the Bank of America mobile banking app. Learn more at bankofamerica.com/Erica by your side. Bank of America, official bank of the Dallas Cowboys. Erica responses may vary. Digital tools featured require downloading the mobile banking app and may only be available on select mobile devices. Erica is a mobile feature only available in the English language. Your chat may be recorded and monitored for quality assurance. Message and data rates and additional terms may apply. Bank of America, N.A., member FDIC.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
Back to the break.
AT&T, connecting changes everything.
Welcome back. It is the final segment of the break,
menu?
live from the SWBC Mortgage Studios at the Star. And we're getting Amber all set up for lunch
If you're
here.
out there, DoorDash Derek some comfort
Ooh.
food.
Yes.
What?
Pozole verde.
What is that?
You've never had it here?
I don't know what it is. Say it again.
Say it again.
Pozole?
What's that?
Pozole?
What is that?
Pozole? Does that sound better?
Pozole?
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 Pozole verde?
I still don't know what it is. Tell me what it is.
I don't know. It's a Mexican soup.
But it's talking about the soups.
It's really good.
Green soup? Verde, did you say?
Yeah, it has like some
What's the
green.
main
Chilies,
dish?
the
What's
chilies.
the meat? What's the meat?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't cook it. I'm not Mexican, but
No, not in the. I'm saying on the menu. What's the meat on the menu?
Smoked Creole chicken.
Creole.
Lemon pepper catfish.
See, that's your accent.
Catfish. You like catfish?
I do like catfish.
Jambalaya rice.
Oh, you're going Cajun today.
Yeah.
Old Bay
I can
roasted
work with that.
fingerling potatoes.
They do a good job with these potatoes here.
Yes, I can
Okra and tomatoes. Green beans with local radish and hot honey. And then cornbread with honey butter.
You know,
I missed the
we ought to start
cornbread.
making this
I
a
do.
regular segment of our show since it is the break.
Yeah.
And it used to be the lunch break. We ought to tell like what's on our lunch menu for today. It always gets
Sounds like
me
it's a little Cajun flair today.
It is.
Yeah,
It is. I can
yeah.
work with that. I can
deal.
work with that.
Good. Catfish sounds good.
Yeah. I can work with that. All right, good.
People out there going, yeah, that's it, Broaddus. Eat that bottom catfish. Trash
care.
fish, you're a trash opinion.
Look, that's what I don't care. It tastes good.
It's like, yeah, I make up my own sauce to put on it.
Right, exactly. All right, here we go. Let's get a few more questions here about this Eagles offense versus the Dallas defense. Let's assume for a second that Bland is not playing this week.
Yeah.
I think that's probably a safe assumption. Let's just assume. How should Dallas best try to defend Brown and Smith?
Is Brown going to play?
Yeah, let's assume Brown's playing. Let's assume Bland is not. That's usually how it goes. Other teams' players play and ours are out. So let's.
Devontae Smith, you're rarely going to see him lined up outside.
Yeah.
And Jordan Lewis, he's played well enough this year to give him that challenge. And I think, honestly, Devontae will get his, but I think Jordan Lewis will get his too.
I agree.
I think there have been only a handful of bright spots on this defense this year. Jordan Lewis is one of them. He's on a 1-year deal. I think this is a guy that you got to bring back. He's been that impactful, I think, at times. There's been games where it could have gotten a lot worse, and it didn't. Some of these games that have seen the offense get back within one score, guys like Jordan Lewis, DeMarvion Overshown, those guys are kind of reasons that they were able to do that, in my opinion.
Is he one of the most? Is he the most consistent player on this defense this year?
That's a good point. I like that.
I wonder. I'm asking the question. Yeah. I think an argument can be made, but I haven't really thought enough about it to give a.
There's a lot of areas in this defense where metrics will tell you you're either 30th, 31st, or 32nd.
Yeah.
In the nickel stuff, you're one of the better teams when you play nickel from the nickel spot in the league because of how he plays overall. So, in a year where everything is not looking great on your defense, he is the one guy that has actually shown up and played.
I just like how he plays. I like his attitude. I like how he approaches the game.
Yeah.
I like how he approaches life. I think he's just a good quality dude.
He's a good dude. Really good dude. To back to your point on Brown, Smith. So Jordan Lewis on Smith.
Yeah.
Trayvon Diggs on Brown, and if they flip the field, keep Trayvon Diggs on the side where he's most comfortable. And
so you would not. I know that they don't.
Yeah.
But you would not consider traveling him with Brown, knowing that Kalen's on the other side. And
yes, I would consider it. I'd more so just kind of communicating what probably will happen.
Yeah, I got you.
Yes, I would consider it. At the end of the day, I think that probably factored into my thought process there. But you have Kalen Carson. Has he been up and down at times? Yes, but you got to throw him out there at times too. So I think this is a situation where you're going to throw him out there and see. One interesting point here in this game is Israel Mukuamu. Dallas Goedert has gotten his. He had a 170-yard game against New Orleans in Week 3. He can certainly be a weapon for Jalen Hurts over the middle of the field. Now, would they feel comfortable putting a guy like DeMarvion Overshown on a Goddard and maybe having Mukuamu handle some A.J. Brown responsibilities? I think there is still a lot of work in progress when it comes to coverage on this defense right now, and I think that's certainly an option too.
If all things are healthy for the Eagles, if Goddard he's dealing with a hamstring right now, if all things are healthy, my priorities are Smith, Goddard, and then Brown. That would be my priority right there.
Yeah.
Because what happens is he's going to throw the ball to Smith because he could play at all levels. Yep. He could run the cross, he could run the hitch, he can run the post. He runs all the routes. And that's where this quarterback will try and find him. Yep. He will look. The next guy he's going to look for is Goddard. That's that. Now you got to figure out about him, and he's going to run. His stuff is like underneath. Not so much up the seams or up the field, but kind of block, wait, like what you saw from Kittle.
Yep.
That kind of stuff. And then Brown. Brown is going to be the guy that's going to go vertical on you. He's the one that they're going to try and hit the shot on, the deep shots and stuff like that. So to me, my priority is I think Smith is a hard cover. I don't think you're going to have – I think you're going to have – you said he gets his, you get yours kind of a thing. I think you're going to, if you had a 50-50 game, because you get down in the red zone, he's their target down in the red zone. I mean, he's going to, because he finds space down there. He's really good at it, they get him on the move and all that. So whoever you feel like can take him the best and stay with him on all the routes that he's going to run, that needs to be your priority right there. And then figure out what Goddard is going to do. That's how, just watching their tape, I kind of felt like that's the way that if the progressions for Hurts, it's Smith, Goddard, Brown. That's kind of how I feel like he's going to play this game.
You guys mentioned Kalen Carson. Where do you think he struggles the most at this point? What's he having the hardest time with?
His confidence is not, I'm not going to say shot. It's shaky right now because they attack him. And the problem is when he came out of Wake Forest, he was a physical player. We've seen him miss a tackle, then make a tackle. Not that but his shoulder. I mean, I think here he is. He's going through a deal where he was hurt. He's missed time. He hasn't had a lot of, he's had reps and played in games, but teams go after him now. They've kind of figured out, where's number 21? Let's get our guys over on them. The Falcons clearly did. The Falcons figured out that, like, hey, we're not going to throw it 7. We're going to throw it 21 over here. That's the guy we need to attack, and they did. And I think teams are kind of figuring that out. And he needs a game where he knocks 2 or 3 balls down and kind of gets him back into that Wake Forest mode where he was super competitive, super tough tackling, and making plays for his team at that time.
This is just something I've kind of theorized off of watching film. This is me kind of assuming how another player is thinking, which I do not like to do. I've mentioned that a couple of times. But what I see from Kalen Carson is it looks like he's too scared to give up the big play.
Yeah.
So much so that he gives up so much leverage in front of him that he's like, okay, as long as they don't get behind me, I'm okay with taking this. Mm-hmm. He's only given up 2 completions over 20 yards all season. But it's that 10 to 20 range where he's just getting chopped up over and over and over again.
And that's about that confidence that you were talking about, right?
If he makes that tackle down in the Philly, Atlanta was coming out and they throw the ball to the flat, and he makes that tackle and they get off the field on 3rd down, Instead he misses it and it goes up the sidelines for a big gain and all that. And, that's kind of stuff. He needs to make some of those plays. I think he's that kind of guy. When he makes a play, now he starts getting into the game that way. Mm-hmm. And, right now, I just think his confidence is not where it probably needs to be for him playing right now. The injury probably got him shook a little bit about the shoulder. Can I be physical? Can I tackle? Can I do all these things, with my shoulder being kind of a little bit, trying to get it right?
Well, he's a talented player, but again, you're asking for a young, inexperienced guy to take this kind of load. And I think the inexperience and him being a rookie is going to show. So, not ideal that you're having to rely on him. And I think the big thing now that he's back is the whole injury situation. Yeah. We know that mentally that can be
take some time.
It can stop you from doing or like trying to give it your all because now you've been through an injury and that's in the back of your head. You don't want to get injured. Even if you're not trying to, it's going to show in that way. And on the other side with Trevon Diggs, again, we've seen some really good time. We've seen him play well. I don't want to get yelled at. No. He's had some good plays, but at the same time, he's another one that even though he played, he's still kind of banged up a little bit with the, was it the ankle?
His injury? It's
calf.
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 I
was trying to think when.
And he's so many.
Yeah. He played, and it's great. But again, that's another thing that I think in most players at this point of the year, they're dealing with something. But that's another guy that don't think that they can attack that side of the field either. I think they can take advantage of a Trevon Diggs as well. So it's just very tough for this defense overall.
One more quick question before we end the show. Looking at what the Cowboys have right now on the rest of the defensive line, how much of an impact do you think Micah can really have when he returns, whether it's this week or whatever week it is? How much of an impact can he really have with a defensive line that right now just isn't being able to really consistently get pressure?
I think he can have an impact because he's always been a guy that's kind of on an island and does something very different than everyone else. And as long as he is getting his, then I think it could be a trickle down effect. Look, You see a Micah Parsons over the course of the last couple of years where he's very big on his sack numbers and very big on his tackles for losses and things of that nature. And, take that for how you will. But he's missed this amount of time. His sack numbers are going to be decreased this season as a result. He's going to try to get as much back up to double-digit sacks as he can. I think this is a situation where you go down the rest of the season, and he understands the negotiations he's about to hop into next offseason.
Does that not worry you? And the reason why I say that is because if you're worried about getting sack numbers, sometimes sacks have to come to you. If you start pressing too much, you get out of position, you don't set the edge, you're too worried about getting upfield, and then you're getting gashed in the run game.
It's very valid.
Right?
I'd line him up over this left tackle and go to work. That's what I'm saying. Too. I mean, make the left side of this offensive line for the Eagles have to block him. If you continue to get some good play from Carl Lawson, I mean, that's why I asked the question about could this be where Carl Lawson and Parsons, could they give you enough pass rush?
Yeah.
That's, because Lawson has shown when he's given the opportunity that he's kind of getting it back to the old,
he made some plays
the old self. So let him work against Lane Johnson and put Mike over on the other side and see if they can do some good that way. I'll tell you another thing too to keep an eye on. this Eagles running back group between Barkley and Gainwell and those guys, they don't pass protect well. Barkley's given up 2 sacks this year, when he's had to do so. Anything to make these guys have to play, they give up pressures and they give up sacks. So don't expect help from their running backs in this game, if that's the case.
I would be putting Chauncey Golston on the right side and letting Carl and Micah Parsons rotate on that left side.
Sure.
Keep them fresh
Sure.
and have them even line them up next to each other at opportunities too.
No
I think there's a way to do that. The reason I say Golston on the right side is because I think if you put a guy like Carl Lawson on that right side, doesn't have a lot of length, probably wouldn't be as strong of a run defender against Lane Johnson. You're giving Saquon Barkley a huge lane on that right side to run the football. But that's just me kind of looking at it.
All right, that's a wrap. We appreciate you guys joining us. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll talk about
Catfish.
Philadelphia defense versus the Cowboys offense. Till then, for Nick Harris, Bryan Broaddus, and Ambar Garcia. I'm Derek Eagleton. This has been The Break live on DallasCowboys.com radio.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys?